My name is Dennis Garcia. I'm the Vice President and General Counsel at Litera. I'm excited to introduce this session today called From Chaos to Clarity, Solving Legal Tech Fragmentation. It's part of Litera's Legal Intelligence series. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest challenges in legal technology, system fragmentation. The average lawyer, incredibly, uses more than 10 systems to manage a single matter. They spend on average about 2 hours a week just going back and forth. And let's not forget the frustration it creates. And while the industry has no shortage of innovation, that innovation doesn't always connect. So we're going to explore what's driving that fragmentation, how firms can begin to think more holistically about their technology, and where the next wave of AI and automation might finally bring clarity to this chaos. So I'm excited and thrilled to be joined by two great voices in this conversation. Joe Borstein, CEO and co-founder of LexFusion, who's had a front row seat to how firms and legal departments are adopting new technology. And my Litera teammate, Rachel Merrick-Maggs, who's led marketing at a top law firm and now helps drive strategic growth at Litera. So let's get started with some quick introductions. Rachel first, please.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm Rachel Merrick-Maggs. I started my career as a lawyer, actually, for a couple of years. And you tell me that I'm still a lawyer, but I have probably fully recovered at this point. From there, I actually went into legal technology, but I was teaching lawyers how to use legal technology and had a lot of conversations with the leaders at those law firms and learned that there's a lot of opportunity to streamline and condense and think just smarter about the way you use technology. And so I ended up in a role where I got to work with those leaders across the largest law firms in the world. And it was an incredible experience. And then one of them hired me to be the CMO of their firm. And then I got to see how these decisions were made in executive committee meetings and the thought that went into them and a lot of the challenges that law firms face, which was a phenomenal experience. And then I love legal technology, wanted to get back into legal technology and ended up coming to Litera because frankly, there was technology that was ending fragmentation. This is not a plant. This is real. Foundation was the reason that I came to Litera because it solves so many of those challenges. And so now I get to lead an amazing growth team.
Terrific. Thank you, Rachel. Joe?
Hey, everybody. Joe Borstein, CEO of LexFusion, now part of a larger company called Barrett & Brunell. I also started my career as a lawyer, as a litigator here in New York. Practiced for about 6 years and actually kind of fell, backwards into the world of legal innovation and legal tech, worked at one of the first alternative legal service providers, truly fell in love with it, fell in love with this idea that there were people out there combining technology, processes, business, sources of capital, other forms of leverage to make practicing better. I think like everybody else, your first few years of practice, it's hard to appreciate that there could be better ways to do things. And being involved with that movement was really a lot of fun for me. Fast forward, nearly 15 years, I launched my own company, LexFusion, to help companies basically avoid the pitfalls that we went through at Pangea 3, which was eventually part of Thomson Reuters, and build the right things at the right time for the right people and help them distribute and do all the fun stuff on the business of law. It's been a really, really fun journey.
Well, thanks a lot, Joe. And let me give you a little more perspective about my background. Before I joined Litera, I worked at Microsoft for a little bit over 20 years as an in-house lawyer. Before working at Microsoft, I worked in-house at Accenture, another large technology company. And then before Accenture, I started my legal career after law school with IBM. And so I have somewhat of a unique distinction in that I've always worked in-house for leading technology companies. Although I've always worked in-house, I've worked closely with a lot of law firms throughout my career. So let's set the stage and let's talk about the problem before we get to possible solutions. Legal teams are dealing with incredible tech expansion, but not always integration. So Joe, you speak to law firms every day. What are you hearing about how fragmentation is affecting productivity and innovation?
It's affecting it a lot. So let's take a step back. You said dealing with problems, right? And I think that is the right way of thinking about the world of legal tech. So, obviously a few years ago, GPT-4 came out and changed all of our worlds, changed the legal tech community greatly, and money started flowing in. 1 million point solutions came to market. Overall, let's be honest, that's a good thing. That means we're in a healthy market and a healthy community. However, what lawyers really want on a day-to-day basis is something that ties those things together in a way that is useful for them and makes their work more efficient, more productive, more, dare I say, fun, where they can focus on the parts of legal work that are really intellectually stimulating. I think finally we're back to a consolidation phase, and consolidation is, I think workflow is the name of the game. So again, I started in legal process. Legal process is thinking about how each piece of the pie is made and streamlining it. The intelligence that GPT and Gemini and all these different technologies bring together is incredibly powerful, but only if you bring that intelligence, to the right place at the right time to the right person. And I think that that's right now coming down to workflows. And I think the smartest people in legal tech are thinking about how to make that as streamlined as humanly possible and efficient and fun for lawyers. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally
Yeah.
makes sense. And those are such powerful points because it's not just about systems, it's about connections and culture. So Rachel, you've lived this from a law firm perspective. How did you see fragmentation impact client experience and business development?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges, and you touched on it a bit, is that data is all there. We wanted to service our clients in the best way we possibly could, and also develop business with our current clients and new clients. And we knew that all of the data we could possibly need existed within the firm. The challenge is it lived in 10, 15 different places. It was the finance had the finance information, HR had information about our diversity. There was, a lot of information that lived with the lawyers and they weren't sharing. And so the challenge was, how do you bring all that fragmented data together? And it was incredibly frustrating because the fact of the matter is that the faster you can get a response back to the client, the more likely you are to win that business and win their confidence. And unfortunately, we couldn't be fast because of all of that fragmentation. It was extremely frustrating.
Super interesting. So let's pivot a little bit. Let's move to platform thinking and connecting intelligence. So if fragmentation is the true problem, platform thinking is often the answer. So let's explore what this really means in practice, Joe. As somebody who's helped firms evaluate hundreds of solutions, how do you see these law firms balancing the demand for specialization versus the need for a unified technology stack?
Poorly. Is there a follow-up question? Just kidding. Look, it's really hard, and I think what we're seeing in legal is what we've seen in every other industry. Just for us, it's really new. You have kind of booms and busts and deconsolidation and then consolidation. Again, like from a 30,000-foot level, this is of course good. It means that there's we're finding real product market fit. We're funding good ideas and we're creating a real ecosystem of solutions. However, just like we talked about before, you need to get those ideas into two people at the right time in the right place. I know we're probably going to talk about it later, but ideally it's even proactively, right? So you are pushing ideas to them, whether that is a business development idea, an argument, if it's in litigation, the right evidence, if it's in e-discovery, or the right types of contract clauses. You're pushing it to the place where they're already working. So like Microsoft is a great example, right? Your former employer, some really great thinkers in there, even about the legal space, talk about meeting people where they work. Jason Barnwell talks about that a lot. Where do they work? Almost exclusively in Microsoft. So Microsoft Word, anyone that tries to take away Microsoft Word from lawyers is in for a tough sledding. outlook is where they work. It's where I work too. And so what types of things do you want to bring? You want to bring legal information. You want to bring business information, which is just as important as legal information. And you want to bring, some of the connective tissue in between. And yeah.
No, I mean, it's absolutely right. You need to make the technology as easy as possible for lawyers to use and consume, and you have to meet them where they're at.
Natural.
Yeah. So Rachel, marketing and client growth are all about connected insights. From your vantage point at Litera, how are you seeing firms respond to that shift toward connection and clarity?
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier. We have the means now to connect the data, right? To have structured data and actually mine that data. And so we are now finding each of those pieces and bringing it into a central location. But there is now a next step. There's a next generation now that we have available and at our fingertips. And you said the word proactive, and that's exactly what we need to be. And so if firms are going to remain competitive, it's not just about now getting all that data in the right place. It's that right time piece of it, which is, how can I be the fastest now that I collect it all? How can I actually almost see what our clients need before they even do? And that's the connection that we can now make thanks to the technology that we have.
It's terrific. And I'll say these challenges and opportunities are not unique to the legal industry. We see them
Exactly.
across all industries. When I was at Microsoft, I used to support the America sales teams in different industries, different customers. They were grappling with the same kinds of opportunities and challenges. So let's talk about agentic AI and the new workflow. This, I think, is a very exciting area. So we've talked about systems and structure. Let's now turn to intelligence. AI is transforming how lawyers work, but also raising questions about control, trust, and change. Joe, how do you see agentic AI, tools that can reason and act across systems, changing this landscape?
So, I mean, first, I think like defining it is important and tricky. So, I'm going to let Rachel do that. No, I'm just kidding. I will talk about the way I think of agentic AI. I think of agentic AI as standing. I'm going to like dumb it down mostly for myself. Standing programs that go out and find information for you without you having to ask. So, what's an example of that? If I'm writing an email to a major corporation, and if on the side of my email, it can see that I'm writing about, XYZ Corp, pulling information from their latest 10Ks and 10Qs and all over the news, that was impossible a couple of years ago. Like there was just that wasn't something you could do. You could have a standing Google search, but then you had to go out of wherever you were working and into that and look at it and read a tremendous amount of information. What do we know AI is good at? It's phenomenal at summarizing. It's phenomenal at finding context. So now you can have it literally in the place where you work, pulling information from all over the internet, including sources that are, quasi behind closed doors, and feeding them right into the email that you're writing. I mean, it's really powerful. As a lawyer, powerful for the practice of law. It's incredibly powerful for the business of law. Because even if you love your client, you know everything about them. Did you spend 2.5 hours reading their headlines this morning? Probably not. That doesn't mean you're not a conscientious person, but the ability to be, mentally prompted while you're working on something relevant can really take a practice to the next level. Again, both in the practice and the business of law. So I think that's where it's just going to be incredibly powerful. I also think as the time per task, which I think will inevitably go down with AI, we have to backfill that with more tasks to keep the industry humming. And not only I'm the total optimist, I think there's every reason to believe the industry will not only continue humming, but grow. The most important thing to the legal industry is GDP growth. It causes more deals and more everything. We're seeing massive GDP growth for the first time in a long time, mostly because of this same technology. So I think it's going to grow. So what are lawyers going to do? They're going to do more high-level tasks and less time, more high-level matters and less time per task. I think there's every reason to believe that. And I think you're already seeing it in the numbers. But to do that, you have to proactively go out and get new matters and talk to in-house counsel about the things that we can do now that we simply could not do a year and a half ago. They were too slow. As someone who, ran an ALSP before I got to really pure legal tech, I actually know how long these things take to do, like, massive abstractions, understanding what's in tens of thousands of contracts, reviewing the law in multiple jurisdictions, summarizing it, summarizing news. These things can take tens of thousands of hours. They were just non-starters. Now, not only are they not non-starters, they're perfectly reasonable things that you want your $2,000 an hour lawyer to do because they have the best mind in the industry. And when you're not paying them for the, kind of grunt work that it took to get the information into their workflow. So I think agentic AI is really going to change the practice for the better, making it more interesting, more fun, I think more profitable, but also providing way more value per dollar to the client.
Yeah, those are terrific insights. And of course, at Litera, we announced about a week and a half ago our new agentic AI solution known as Lido, which is very exciting, which I've started to use. I think it's going to be great opportunities for me to get at us on the repetitive, mundane work, which my team and I have been doing for a long period of time to free us up to do more strategic, mission critical work for our business clients.
So will they save some boring work for the lawyers? It's important.
There may still be some boring work here and there.
That's
right?
important.
Rachel, you've seen this evolution inside organizations.
Mm.
What's the opportunity for legal teams as AI matures?
Well, so a lot of what Joe said really resonated, and he stole a lot of my thunder, so thanks for that.
what I was
But
going for.
so with things like Lido and with agentics that will actually anticipate what lawyers need and get them the answers so much faster so that they can be responsive, it leaves that opportunity open to take on more matters. The challenge is that law firms aren't going to get those matters without significant business development. And business development isn't just being the best lawyer. And unfortunately, as all of us are lawyers, we all went to law school. We didn't learn how to do business development. We didn't learn how to prioritize that. And we're not incented to prioritize that. Our incentive is, bill the most hours and do the best client work. And that's what we want to achieve. And so there's no real ability. There's no time, there's no incentive to sit down and really think about business development. What AI now allows us to do is help those lawyers maybe to prioritize it in a way that is anticipating their needs. So you mentioned, right, the agentics of Lido anticipates needs. We can now do that with tools like Proactive that enable you to say, okay, I'm going to bring not just a news feed that's telling you what's going on, but a news feed about your clients that's not just saying we had a 10K. This is the relevance, and here's a potential email that you might want to send in your authentic voice. And it's a minute, 10 minutes later, you are doing business development and maybe not even realizing you're doing it, and you're doing it without expending the time that you will cost in billable hours or taking away from that exceptional client work.
Can I make one point? Like done right, business development can have such a negative connotation for no reason. Done right, spotting an issue with your legal mind and the assistance of AI teeing things up for you, you're literally just getting in front of a problem for your client. There's nothing dirty about it. It's like the highest, best calling of a lawyer to preempt something that the client hopefully hasn't even thought of yet. So yeah, it could just be both. It can be business development and it can be actually proactive lawyering. Like
That's a great point. And it's actually about that maniacal client service that Manish talks about, which is,
I'm picturing a villain,
but
but it's good. Yeah, it's positive.
It's that ability to say, hey, I'm here for you. I saw that this is going on. I have the resources to support you. How can I be there for you?
Yeah.
And that's business development and it's client service. And it's going to ultimately
Preemptive issue spotting.
and it's going to
actually
be the
what we're
difference.
taught in law school.
That is going to be the difference between the lawyers and law firms who accelerate through this period of growth and those that actually fall behind.
And I think what this means, I'm going to hear from more of our outside counsel law firms about opportunities where we could partner together, right? But if they're being proactive, I think that's terrific because it really differentiates their firm and what they could do for their clients, right? And so at the end of the day, it's all about the relationship. So Joe, as firms navigate through these changes, what's the single biggest mistake you see legal teams make when adopting AI? Is it overbuying, under integrating, or is there something else totally different?
That's it. Can I say all of the above? Yeah, look, we're in an interesting period, right? There are so many tools out on the market that for the first time, it is a positive thing that chief innovation officers, CIOs have been empowered. They're running much more structured buying processes than they were just a few years ago. There's a lot of good in that. The bad is also, I think, obvious. There's a lack of kind of bottoms up energy where like it used to be that partners would run around and try a bunch of things and really end up jamming those things through, which by the way also has a million problems. There's no right answer, but I think the balance maybe has shifted too far in that direction. We need to have some sort of like free market where people can try things, bring ideas up through organizations, and things can win on their merits. I also think people aren't thinking enough about what we talked about in the beginning, which is how do we channel solutions, through a very small handful of providers and technologies in which like we can get the solutions we want, which could be point and could be broad, but through the right channels. And again, not to beat a dead horse here, but I do think that those places are Microsoft Word, those places are email, those places are apps on people's phones. There really are a handful of places that lawyers consistently work. You could argue, e-discovery platforms for litigation technology. But I think it is a balance of, again, what is new to law here? New to law is that we have a real economy in legal technology. And it's not going to end with new things coming all the time. That's great, but let's balance that with we are an industry of precedent. We can't be changing the way we do business every 6 months. That's actually not good either. So balancing those two really fair concerns, I think is the challenge of the future.
Well, that issue of change fatigue too, if we're not bringing things into where lawyers are already working, they're just not going to, it could be the best tool in the world, but if they feel like they have to change again, change a process, change a workflow again, they're just not going to do it.
Yep.
And so that's a really good, that change management and like change fatigue is such a real challenge that we're facing.
Well, look, as we're entering a world where legal technology is as big and as fast moving as technology in any other industry, we can look to Silicon Valley, right? Silicon Valley has always said you need to be 10x better than your competitor for people to make material change in their workflows and their day-to-day. Not 10% better, not 20% better, 10x better. And that's what the venture capitalists will invest in. That is why consistency is important. Like working in the right place is important. Funneling through Microsoft is important.
It makes a lot of sense. And on the topic of fatigue, I mean, are we already seeing AI fatigue and exhaustion in some respects? I mean, everyone's pushing their teams to use more and more AI, but are we moving to like an AI burnout stage, if you will?
I think that it doesn't matter that it's AI. What matters that it's a solution, right? That it's going to solve a problem. So there's that, people say you can't have AI for the sake of AI. And every time, you walk into a room and say, oh, we have AI, it's like, oh, the eye rolls. Nobody wants just AI. They want you to fix their challenges. They want you to solve, right? You've talked here, solve for the fact that my client needs me to respond faster. Solve for the fact that I need to fill up my billables. Solve for the fact that we have to bring in new business. These are the things that clients need. And yes, if AI can solve that, fantastic.
And there's some other tools which can do the same thing and solve it, right? So it doesn't have to be totally AI. Think about using your entire technology stack when needed.
Right.
So let's take a look ahead in the future states. So beyond today's tools and trends, where does this all lead? 5 years from now, do you expect the greatest gains in legal tech to come from workflow automation, knowledge augmentation, or perhaps entirely new business models? Tough question. This is not an easy.
I'm willing to go on a limb on that one. I think that a lot of growth will come from entirely new business models. I think combinations of technology and human expertise are going to be where a lot of the new business is. However, I do believe that the elite institutions will not just do okay. I think they'll absolutely thrive. I do think AI for the first time ever in legal, allows, even the best legal minds to create technological leverage. So they can basically replicate themselves. So I think for the best of the best, that means an absolute bonanza. For everybody else, it could be challenging, except for these other business models that I think are gonna grow. I also think that the net pie is almost certain to grow. I mean, that's just Econ 101. If the cost per task comes down, people will want more of it. And there's every reason to believe it will be a bigger total economy. Who the specific winners and mega winners are, that's challenging. I think only time will tell.
I think we're going to see, the haves and have-nots. I think that the difference between them is going to get wider and wider and wider, because we see these firms that are saying, yes, let's try technology, let's put it in there, let's see where this leads. And experimentation with technology is absolutely critical. We're not going to wait until it's perfect. We're going to try it now and see where we can make significant gains. And so we have those firms who are doing that. And we have those firms that are sitting back and saying, we're going to wait. And that we are past the point of being able to wait on technology. And so those firms that do take that leap and decide to go forward, we're going to see, I think, happier lawyers. And I'm saying this because I have a lot of friends who burnt out of law. I have a friend who was at a top 10 law firm and is a paella chef. And she's very happy as a paella chef, but I think she was a great lawyer and she would have.
Paella is pretty good though.
She's phenomenal at what she does. But I do think that the law profession is sadder because she's not in it. And we have a lot of significant attrition in legal because of unhappy lawyers. If we can get rid of the drudgery, that stuff that on a day-to-day basis, that administrative dare I say, that nobody wants to do, and then fill it with time with clients, time supporting them, because you can say, I see your challenge and I want to help you. Time out in the field with them, that maniacal client service of being together. I think that is going to make the difference between the haves and have-nots. And three years from now, we're gonna, I hope, have some happy lawyers.
Yeah, no, it's really hard to foresee what's going to be happening in 3 to 5 years, but you don't want to be left behind, right? You want to really be proactive in understanding these tools, how to use these tools, how do you better serve your clients with these tools. And so, people should get on board, and if they haven't started, start now, right? It's not too late to do that. So,
Not even close.
how about some practical takeaways? I mean, if each of you can provide to the audience some next steps, some go-dos, which they should be focused on.
I'll start. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. So we talked about the importance of identifying challenges to solve. So it's, what are your top challenges? So go out, identify those top challenges. They might be simplifying processes, bringing tools into the workflow. Maybe we're looking for an agentic agent that will help our attorneys to get rid of that, the drudgery I mentioned, and actually be happier lawyers. Or maybe it's business development. Maybe it's, we are staring at a potential revenue gap because of all these incredible efficiencies. How do we make sure that we are getting the right tool to solve that challenge and enable our attorneys to be more successful? Maybe it's, all right, I'm going to give one more, lateral hire challenges, right? Or the other side of that is partner attrition. So if we're seeing partner attrition or client attrition, how do we get the right tool in place to solve that gap? And so I would say that the takeaway is, go back and say, what are the 3 to 5 things we're trying to solve for? And what are the tools that are actually going to help us there?
That's awesome. You stole a lot of my thunder there. So I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to say, it was your turn. I'm going to say, my advice is just do the right thing. And what I mean by that is, we have a lot of tools. Litera has many of them. But there are a lot of tools out there that clearly and obviously can make you a better, faster, cheaper lawyer. And I don't mean cheaper by the hour. I mean cheaper by the task, which means better for the client. If they exist, use them. And I promise you, if you fast forward 5 or 10 years, your business will grow. Your clients will be happy. Like, doing the right thing will beget success. One of the things, I take people on a little kind of trip in the imagination. Imagine a lawyer 15 years ago, when Westlaw first, went digital, deciding that, nah, I'm just going to walk around the library and take 10 times as long.
I like some lawyers like that.
Yeah, and it was a real thing, but it sounds laughable now. A lot of people were afraid that it was going to collapse the work because research took forever, and then it started taking 1/10 the amount of time. Then it happened with e-discovery. Then it happened with outsourcing. It's happened over and over and over. And if you chart success of lawyers, profits per partner generally continue to go up. Associate salaries have tended to go up. It's still been a great profession. It will still be a great profession. And you will be much happier if you just use the tools of modernity. They're fun. They're exciting. If I didn't get to answer the other question, if you're over AI at this point, get not over it, because this is one of the most amazing things humanity has ever created. It's only been a couple of years. Allow us to enjoy it for a little while longer. Hop on the bandwagon. I'll come back to what I said at the beginning. Do the right thing. Do the right thing by your clients and the profession. And I think you'll do phenomenally well.
No, those are all great takeaways. And from my perspective, I would just add two short ones. Number one, always remember that technology is a lawyer's best friend. It could do a lot to help better serve your clients. Number one. Number two, embrace change. This area is going to be evolving and changing. It's a fluid, dynamic space, right? And so you got to lean into the change and not be afraid of it or fear it. So, I want to thank.
Excited about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's an exciting time to be a lawyer and to embrace such cutting edge technology. So, Joe, Rachel, I want to thank you for your time. If there's one theme that stands out, it's this. The future of legal isn't about more tools, it's about smarter connections, and I would say also people. From proactive intelligence to agentic AI, the firms that thrive will be the ones that build systems that think together, act together, and learn together. So let's keep the conversation going, because clarity starts with connections. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis.